Hello, this tutorial is from the assessment department. You will see how students access the STAAR online practice test, how to navigate within the online platform, and how to use the online tools. This video will not cover test administration, and we will not go through every single new item type. After watching this tutorial, you will have a better understanding to help students take the practice test. We need all students to practice multiple times. This will help reduce confusion with using the online platform and allow them more time to become familiar with the new item types and how to answer the questions. Students can take the practice test on campus or off campus. Parents might need tips from schools to help them at home. The first way to log in is through Clever. Students click on the STAAR practice software icon and they'll arrive at the practice login page. The second way to log in is through the Texas Assessment Program homepage. All of the testing roles at the top have the practice test login card. And when you go to the practice test, it will bring you to the same login screen. The login page defaults to the guest user. No ID or session ID is required here. You just click on the green sign in button to log in. On the other hand, a full login is available, and students have to first click the toggle to the off status, and they must log in with their first name, TSDS ID number, and be provided a session ID number. Teachers must provide the TSDS numbers to the students, and campus test coordinators must create and share a practice session ID with the teachers. This requires advanced planning, but know that students are already uploaded into the TIDE system at the time of this recording, so those who meet eligibility criteria will have their approved designated supports pulled in for the practice test. Again, this is exclusive to students with IEPs, 504, and MTSS plans that are documented in the appropriate systems before doing the practice. For demonstration purposes, we will log in as a guest user. Students can take the practice test as many times as they like. Just remember, it will not save progress or give a graded test score at the end. We're looking at a grade 7. And we're going to click on the menu for STAAR Redesign Practice Test. When you return to practice another time, you can go through the STAAR New Item Types menu. We're going to review a reading test. Now, this is the test attribute setup screen. So if you are not logging in as we showed you with the TSDS number, you can still do some good work here, but you will have to activate what the students need to work with if it is a support. We do want to encourage extra caution to make sure that students who don't have plans are practicing with designated supports they aren't approved for. Again, the designated supports that we're looking at here will require eligibility criteria, and it already has to be documented well in advance of the test. If there's a question, students and parents need to ask teachers what is approved for STAAR in benefit of the student. So looking here, the first option you have is auto text to speech, and this is approved sparingly to provide oral administration. If you click on this, it will read the entirety of all eligible content without stopping. It starts with the directions and goes all the way to the final answer choice. Students cannot pause it, and they have to wait for it to finish. An improvement was made by TEA where they programmed a 1-second delay, so it will not start speaking information until the test question is loaded on the screen. We're going to leave this off. We are going to check content and language supports and spelling assistance. Again, these do require that eligibility criteria be met in advance, but we do want you to see what the student is possibly going to have questions about. The zoom will affect how big or small the content is magnified on the screen. The color setting can be changed if the students prefer. And then there's also different pointers they can use for the mouse. The text-to-speech option at the bottom is at request, and we are going to click this one on. This is the one that will predominantly be approved for the students to use, and it gives them control where they can choose what and when something will be read during the test. So we're ready, and let's click select. Because we activated text-to-speech, a quick sound check is required. When you come back, you can click on the button to skip it, but we're going to click the speaker button and make sure that our equipment is working on our device.
This text is being read aloud. This text is being read aloud.
If everything is okay, I will click I heard the voice. If I didn't care for the voice, I do have two options for some different speakers to choose from. And if that was a little bit on the loud side, I can change the volume, pitch, and rate. So I heard the voice. I click on that, and it will bring me some test settings. If I click on that, it will go back to the page we just left. And there is a help guide that will list out the different global tools and some different information to help understand how the platform works. And that is also available within the platform when the students are taking a test. So we are ready to begin. At the very top corner in the left is an item box, and it will fold down to show the total number of questions for the selection. If there is an orange triangle, that will indicate that the student did not answer a question. A flag means that it was marked for them to come back to and check their answers or work out the problem. And it does say what these mean right here. They just click anywhere and the box will close. Next to that is a progress meter, and that will show the percentage of the test that has been worked through. To the far right of that, we have a help menu, and when you click on the question mark, you'll get that same help guide that we just reviewed on the previous screen. But one note here, with it coming up in a new box, point out to your student anytime they see these diagonal arrows. If you click on it, it will expand the window to your full screen if they need more room to read what's on there. And there's also this blue move wheel, and if they click and drag, they can just go up and down if they want it shorter or just wider and not necessarily the whole screen. When you click on X, it goes away, and next to it is a system setting wheel. It will allow them to make adjustments to text-to-speech again if it's still not comfortable. And in the far right, there is a pause button. When you click on it, it will pause the test for short periods of time, and that will be for breaks and lunches. However, remind students if they are idle where no action is happening on the screen or with the mouse, the system will automatically go into a pause state and they'll have to log back in. Now, I have already been in this test, so to navigate between the questions, you've got a back and next arrow here. Back goes to the previous question, next goes to the upcoming question. Students can click save. When you click on it, nothing is going to trigger on the screen that something happened, but the system will automatically save their answers as they work through the test. The End Test button will not activate where you see the red square until the final question is presented. Next, we have the dictionary tool. When students click on the button for it, it will bring up a window. The window can be moved around depending on what they need to find and look up. I've already looked up a word, so it will save that and remind students if that's the case, they need to space over the previous word and type in what they wish to define. You type in the word, click on the button dictionary, and they will get a definition. If the word has a lot of entries, they may have to use the scroller bar to make sure they review everything about it so that they understand what it means. When they're done, you click the X and the box goes away. Next to it is a notepad, and when they click on this, students will find it useful to enter some information that might help answer a question or work out a problem. It can also be moved around the screen. But whatever is typed in here, students need to save and close. When they recall it again, it will still be there and they can add to it. The next thing is your line reader. When students click on it, it will highlight the very first line of whatever is eligible to be read. If they would like to look at something different, they simply need to click on the sentence where the mouse is, and if they click and drag, it can highlight a larger section of text. When they don't need it anymore, click on the button again and it will go away. The zoom in and out will magnify the screen. When you go back to the left part of the screen, you'll see a context menu button, and when you click on it, they will get the speaker button that will trigger the text to speech. If you have nothing highlighted, it'll start with the directions.
Read the selection and choose the best answer to each question. At the age of 14, boys like Natu were trained to serve in the
Since we had
Inca.
at request text to speech, I was able to click on the context menu button again and stop it when I heard what I needed to hear. If the student highlights just a certain amount of words, the difference would be they can click speak selection, and that's all that they will hear from the speech to text. There's also another expansion arrow, and if the students are indifferent to that, they just may need to use the scroller bar to make sure they read everything that is presented in the passage. To the far right, there is another context menu button, but this one is specific to the answer choice. So if we click on the tutorial button, it will give them some information and demonstrations about how to answer the question correctly. It could be text, some may have audio, or it could be a number of graphics, and that will be specific to whatever the content is. There is a play bar so they can pause it or restart it if necessary. And we will close that out. There's also a Mark for Review button. When students click on that, the test question will be flagged. And if we go back to our items, we know to come back and check this question. Sticky notes resemble the notepad, but it is connected only to the question where the notes are entered. So I'm on question 3. And when I save and close, I will see an editing marker next to the flag, and I can recall my notes. I can click here and I can recall my notes if I come back to this question. If nothing is highlighted, the student can click on Speak the Question.
Which sentence from the excerpt best reveals how the conflict will be resolved? Option A. Maida was the fastest Chosky in the southeast quarter.
Okay, the option would be the answer choice.
Option A. Meta was the fastest chasqui in the southeast quarter. Paragraph 4.
And the last thing in this context menu box is the strike through. And when you click on that, your screen will fade. And it's pretty light, but the students will click on the test questions they need to eliminate. And when they click somewhere else on the screen, it goes away. Back to the left, you'll notice that you have this no speaking symbol, and you need to share with students. This means that whatever content is listed under it is not eligible to be read out loud. So if they click on it anyway, it will not do anything or generate a sound. The last thing we're going to look at is a writing question. Remember, it is now embedded within the reading STAAR and is no longer a separate test administration. Anything with writing that's going to be online will be presented in this type of text box. In the bottom right hand corner, you will get a character count that tells you the maximum amount that can be written. I've already written something, so I've used 34 characters, and I have a total of 475. With this window, you cannot expand it. It is already scaled to hold a maximum of the characters allowed. And these are going to be what has been called short and long constructed responses. Once something is typed in, there are editing tools at the top to help with your writing. One other note, as your students are working through the tests, if they are entering an answer and don't see the check mark to advance, they will have to click the next navigation button to get to the next set of questions or the next question. I have worked through this test, so I am going to jump to the end. I answered the final question here, so I am going to end the test. And you will see a summary of the test questions that were answered and not answered. This will also be the same summary seen on all the other practice test subjects. So when you are ready, I'm not going to go back and change my answers. Students will submit the test. I see a breakdown of what I answered and did not answer. A max score that equals 1 means I answered correctly. My score was a 0. That means I got it wrong. So you either get a 0 or a 1. And when you're done, you just log out. We'll jump to a math question to look at some tools that you will see on Math and Science questions. I picked an Algebra 1 test. This uses an advanced calculator, and you'll see that for grade 8 and Algebra 1, the TI calculator there will already be enabled. And I'll just activate text-to-speech this time. What's different here will be your reference tool. And when I click on that, I will get some information specific to the test content. If it's math, it could be something on the order of a formula chart. Science might have a periodic table, for example. These can be expanded to full page and closed and reopened. The next tool is the calculator. And when I click on that, it's going to give me two options. Even though we had the TI graphing calculator already activated, it does give us an option for the Desmos calculator. Now, elementary grades and 6th and 7th grades will only have a 4-function calculator if they meet eligibility criteria. It will look like this. So we will click on the TI graphing calculator, and this is how it is presented. You can move it around. Once students decide what they want to work out for their problem, they will just click at the bottom. And just remember, when they go from question to question, their equations and formulas are not going to be saved. Click the X to leave, and if we click on it again, it's going to bring back the last thing we chose. In the left-hand corner, this is a switcher, and when I click on that, it'll bring me back my options, and this time I can choose a Desmos calculator. I can expand it to make it bigger, or collapse it to make it smaller. At the bottom, there is a show keypad, so I can type this in for my functions. There are some other things for controls, and students should be familiar with these. The students will type in their equations, and if they have not used this, they need to come up to speed very quickly. And when they're done, they just click the X to exit. On this question, we have the graph and draw tools we'll take a look at. When I click on that, it will bring it up. You can move it around. The transparency will determine how light or dark it shows up. The grid size can be reduced or increased. And then the colors of the lines or dots can be chosen here as well. So if you have anything already typed in, you can do reset to clear it out. If you're adding a point, if I want to add some points, I just point and click. If I want to connect a line, I have to click on the connect the line button. And then make my start and stop points. I can actually put this over the question. And help myself work out the problem. There's also a freehand draw that is available to students. When you're done, click the box and it goes away. If students need to use a ruler, they will click on the button for ruler and it will show up on the page. They can click and drag to move it around the screen. And it is fairly transparent where they can line up the zeros for inches or centimeters to make sure they have the correct start point for what they want to measure. If they wish to move the ruler to measure something lengthwise or crosswise, they have the option. And then again, this rotator will bring it back for them. When you reset it, it'll just go back to the center of the page. And when they are done, they'll click the ruler to make it disappear. And that wraps up what we wanted to show you today in this video. To recap, we covered how to access the online practice test site for STAAR. We navigated within the online platform, and we showed you how the online tools will work so that the students can navigate comfortably within the platform and not waste too much time trying to figure it out versus answering the test questions. Please practice as much as possible before the big day and reach out if you still need more assistance. Thank you.